Hello, and welcome once again back to the Ferguson Library Presents Microsoft Intermediate Microsoft PowerPoint here on our online YouTube channel. Thanks for everybody who's joining me. I hope there's going to be more people in and watching us. But first off, I hope while you were waiting before we started that you went and connected to fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes to get the exercise activities for today's class. When you go to that page, there's some places to kind of look for. What you want to do is right up here at the top, we have our schedule. So here we are at today's class, Intermediate Microsoft PowerPoint. There are two more classes left in the schedule for this week, or this current schedule. Next week, I'll be doing Microsoft Office Suite Integrated, which is looking at using Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint all together and kind of the different ways that they can work with each other. And then I'll be doing Introduction to Video Editing in the last week of March. And so we'll be looking at using a free video editor. I'm still trying to decide whether or not it's going to be with the one that I've done classes on before or a new one that I've discovered. I just have to spend some time with it to see if it will work the way that I want it to. So that's coming up. But for today's class, what you'll want to do is you want to scroll down and over here on the left under class materials, come down where it says Intermediate Microsoft PowerPoint. Click on the little plus sign to expand this section out. And there's a couple different files here. There's the exercise handout, which is the PDF with the exercises that we'll be working on here in the class. It's 2 pages. And then I get to the browser window here. And then there's also the exercise file. This is a PowerPoint file. So what you want to do is you'll want to right click, go to Save Link As, and then choose to save it as a place somewhere on your computer that you'll be able to find it. So when we get to the later part of the class where we're working on transitions and animations, this is the file that we'll be working with that case there. Before I continue, I just want to kind of go over just a couple of ways this works here on YouTube. For those of you who haven't attended a class here at the Ferguson Library on YouTube yet, what you're seeing first off is a few seconds delayed from where I am at. So there's usually right now it should be about a 10 to 20-second delay. So if you do decide to ask a question during the course of the class, I may not respond immediately. I will see all of your questions and I'll respond to them when I think there's a good time for that. Now there are 2 different ways that you can ask a question of me during the course of this class. First is by using the YouTube chat right here in the video window you're watching. Now it'll either be to the right of your video screen or down below, depending on how large you've made your video. If you've expanded the video, it'll usually show up down below. If you haven't, it'll show up kind of on the side there. You can use that if you're signed into YouTube or Google. If you don't want to sign into YouTube or Google, there is an alternate, and let me actually just go back to here. It's available on the Online Technology Class Resources page. If you scroll down, right over here on the right is a little chat room here. So you can type your message in this box here. It'll show up here, and I will see that as well too. Either way is a perfectly valid way of asking me questions. So, what are we going to cover in today's class? Let's make sure I am seeing everything to here. There we go. So what are we going to cover in today's class? So some of the things you should already know coming into today's class that we covered last week in the basic PowerPoint class is we looked at how to create a new PowerPoint file, how to save and open a saved PowerPoint file, how to add text and images to a PowerPoint. So some of those basic building blocks of putting together a PowerPoint presentation. We looked at how to change the design, how to use the themes and like the different variants on the themes in PowerPoint, and we looked at how to play your slideshow. Now today we're going to take that foundation that was laid in the last class, and we're going to look at kind of how to kind of jazz up and make your PowerPoint presentations a little bit more exciting. We're going to look at how to do transitions between slides. So when you change from one slide to another, how to kind of make that so it's just not one slide disappears and the other one shows up in its place. We're going to look at how to animate elements of your slide. So basically how to kind of add in animations and kind of make things look a little bit more dynamic and interesting as you're presenting. So you're able to kind of make something pop when you need it to, or make something kind of recede in the background if it isn't so important anymore. we're going to look at a concept in PowerPoint called slide masters. Now, last week we looked at at the design of the presentation, and we worked with some of the built-in themes and looks that are built into Microsoft PowerPoint. With slide masters, it allows you to put in pieces into your slides. So, like for example, if you want to always have like a logo available in your slides, or you want to use a certain font on all of your slides, instead of always changing every single slide, you can kind of set those as kind of like an overall setting, as a global setting, and it will use it in all the slides for that presentation. We'll look at that more as we're working with the slide masters. And then finally, we're going to take a look at kind of the next level of presenting in PowerPoint. Last week, we just looked at what happens when you play the PowerPoint presentation and be able to see kind of how it looks when it's projected and some of the tools that you have. Today, we're going to look at the presenter view. So PowerPoint has a capability of giving you as the presenter some additional tools and some additional views that you don't normally get in the audience wouldn't see. And so we're going to look at how to set that up and how it works and kind of the different things that are available to you at that time there. So let me know if you have any questions on any of that, and we will dive in. So the first thing that you'll want to do, and I made this mistake last time actually, as I did not change over to my demo screen, is we're going to go into, oh, I forgot actually, another thing, way that I work here in the YouTube class, going to come back here, working with the YouTube class, is that I will talk through and demonstrate the different skills and activities that we're doing, and then I will stop and I will give you the opportunity to go into your own version of PowerPoint to try the exercise yourself. This is a good time if you're having difficulty with it or you're confused about what I said to ask a question, or if you just have a question. These are a good time for me to kind of answer and kind of work on that there. So what I'll do is because usually you're going to be watching the video and then you have PowerPoint open in the background. I'll give some time where after I've demonstrated and walk through the exercise, you'll be able to just go to PowerPoint and you won't have to listen to me or see me. You'll be able to kind of do the exercise yourself. So let us proceed then. So we're going to go in and we are going to start with a empty version of PowerPoint. This one here. So I've opened up PowerPoint here and I'm just going to start with a blank presentation. I am using PowerPoint 2016 here. I think it's 2016. But if you're using PowerPoint 2016, PowerPoint 365, or PowerPoint 2019, the latest version is 2019. Everything that we're working on here is going to be pretty much the same. 365 has a few more bells and whistles added in there. If you're using an older version of PowerPoint, if you're using PowerPoint 2010 or 2013, and things don't, most of this here should be the same, but if is anything that looks different in your version of PowerPoint, please let me know and I'll help identify where you need to be able to do what you need to do at that point. There were some changes between those versions. So if it doesn't look exactly like what I'm looking like here, let me know and we'll kind of get you onto the kind of the right track. So, slide masters. What are slide masters? So, when you want all of your slides to contain the same fonts and images, such as logos, you can make all of these changes in one place, the slide master, and they'll be applied to all of your slides. Now, this is one of those things where preparation really matters and it comes into play because you don't want to go through and design your entire PowerPoint presentation and then decide that you want to kind of tweak around with the slide masters or your layouts or anything. So it's a good idea to like edit your slide master and layout masters. They're pretty much like the same similar thing there, such before you start to create the individual slides. So it allows you to kind of plan and think about kind of what your presentation is going to be and how it's going to lay out. This is also a way that you can actually start building kind of like your own customized design for PowerPoint that you're then able to use for future presentations. So if you know that you're going to be making a lot of presentations and you kind of want to have a consistency about how your presentations look from one presentation to another, you can build these these layout masters, and you can just kind of keep reusing them and keep rebuilding on them so that all of your presentations have that same look and feel to them there. So here we are in PowerPoint. We did a tour of it last week, and I'm going to come here to the View tab. So we're up here on the ribbon. It's all the way over here near the right, almost the last to the right, and it says View. So when I click on that there, you'll notice up here on the ribbon, we have our different sections that we have. So over here on the left, we have presentation views. And then right to it, we have master views. So right now we are in a presentation view. You can see the normal up here is highlighted. It has this little gray kind of shading on it there. And so that's what we're in right now. We're in the normal view of PowerPoint and editing the PowerPoint. This is the normal view of viewing your presentation. Something like outline view will actually give you kind of like an outline similar to if you do your outline on like a Microsoft Word of notes or something. This will kind of help kind of build that there. Slide sorter gives you little thumbnails of each of your slides, and it's a good way to kind of move things around so you can kind of easily see the whole thing. If when you're in normal view, you only get to see this kind of like bar over here on the left. But if you come to slide sorter, you'll see a lot more of your slides available in the space here, and you can easily then kind of move them around. So it's a really great way to kind of rearrange and reorganize your slides using right here in the slide sorter there. Things like notes pages allows you, this here shows the current slide and you're able to type in and add notes. The nice thing about these notes is that they're useful for you when you're designing and building your presentation, but these notes will also show up in the presenter view. So when you're doing a presentation and you're using the presenter view here in PowerPoint, these will be the notes that you can see. So you don't always have to have all of the information on the slide for you to read off, or even have like paper notes or something sitting next to you there, or have your notes on a phone. A lot of people kind of do those different things. You can have the notes right here in PowerPoint. And when you're in presenter view, you get to see those there, and they give you your kind of guides as you're presenting. So this is because a better way. The notes are available here in normal. Actually, I thought available here. Okay, maybe. Oh yeah, down here. If I go to notes, you can see I can add notes down here. But so I just expanded. There's this little notes button right down here on the. I'm moving my mouse so it's a little bit more visible down here on. It's right actually almost where I actually. You know what? Let me hide my. Actually, let me move myself quickly so I can show that there because I think. Oh no, I'm just right next to where I am on the down here is the notes, and that there will expand and open up this little. There we go. Open up this little notes typing section, but you can see it's kind of small. Doesn't give you a lot of real estate. It's a lot easier, especially if you're going to be writing a lot of notes, to kind of write it and be able to put it into this box here. So that's really kind of, and then this ends up also being printable, that you can print out your presentation that'll show the slide and the notes underneath there. So you can use that as a handout, or you can use it for your own kind of purposes during the presentation. So if you know that you're not going to have presenter view, you can, or you're not certain if you're going to have access to the presenter view, because depending on how the venue is going to have the presentation set up, you may not have a computer in front of you. The computer may be back at a tech booth or something. You can print this out and have your note. Okay, so it looked like I lost connection there for a bit, and it should be back right now. Please let me know in the chats if you're not seeing me or if there's been issues. But everything should be working right now. We just had a little bit of an internet blip. Yeah, so that's notes view here. But what we want to kind of look at tonight or in today's class over here is our master views. And there's three different master views. There's the slide master, which is what we're going to be looking at in today's class. There's handout master, which is useful for building handouts for your presentation, so that you have something that people can have and follow along with you. And then Notes Master again helps you organize like notes and everything there and such. I highly recommend kind of getting in, just kind of playing around and seeing. We're not going to have time really to kind of look over these different subjects here, but get in and play around with them and see if they'll be useful for you in the way that you want to present. Um, PowerPoint, as I mentioned last week, PowerPoint is, I think, the most fun out of the Office programs to play around with because there's just a lot of freedom and a lot of kind of interesting things you can do with it. But enough talking, let's go into Slide Master and see what it looks like. So I'm going to click on Slide Master, and we're going to come in, and so this is Slide Master here. Now, this looks very similar to what we were seeing in our normal edit window. You can see we have our slide kind of preview box over here, and then we have a list of various slides going down. Now, what these all over here on the left are, though, is these are different layouts. So a layout is, let me actually close and I'll show you what the layout is. So remember when we were in the Home tab, let me go back to our normal view. And we're going to go back to the Home tab. And we did, last week when we created a new slide and we have we have these 9 different options here for different slides. These are different layouts. So it's different ways that the content is set out onto the slide. So for example, there's a title slide, which we have here, which has a block for a title and a block for a subtitle. There's things like title and content where there's a block for a title, and then there's block for content, whether it's a picture, a chart, a graph, text, whatever kind of content is you want to put in there. Those are different layouts. Now, if we go back to our slide master, we have a variety of different layouts here. These actually we should have here is we should have the it's let's see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's like 11. There's a couple that are kind of like a little sideways here. But for the most part, these are a lot of the different layouts that we see in that layout screen. Here's our blank one. Um, here's the title and the subtitle one. Here's that title and the content one that I was pointing out there. And so what these are is you can go in and you can edit the layouts that are already created by Microsoft Office in Microsoft PowerPoint here. So what happens is right now we don't have a theme selected. We just chose the blank presentation, but we can start kind of building our own theme if we want to. So for example, here, actually, let's go back up to the title here. So if I go up to the title here and I want right now this here, if I highlight this, come here to home, you can see this is in the Calibri Light font. If I wanted to, I could change this to another font. Let's change this to say Bell MT. And let's change the subtitle here font to something else as well too. Change it to something really distinct, something that makes it stand apart from what it was before. Let's do Castellar, why not? So we can see that the two different kind of things on there. And you know what? Let's make the subtitle a specific color. We're gonna make it blue. So that's blue there. And so now what I've done in this case here is I have now redesigned what this title slide, how it works and how it looks. So if I go to close, and what I'm going to do is here we are. I'm back in that first slide that got automatically created when I opened up the blank presentation. And you can see now, let me click out of this such. You can see now right here that this is the font that I just selected. So even that little change means that anytime I add in this title, if I go up here and create new title slide, it will always be that font that I selected. The subtitle will always be the fonts that I selected. And you can see the color that I selected there as well too. So I was able to change the way that these slides over here. So every time that I do a title slide, or if I do a title and content slide, I can make the title look and appear a certain way. So for example, let's look at the title. If I go here, right now, by default, when I do the title, type in title of slide here, you can see that it's always against the left side. It's left justified. It's this Calibri font. It's not an interesting font. It's just black on white. But if I know that this was a slide that I was going to be using all the time, and in my design, when I'm designing the slide, I know that, okay, this year I want this actually to be centered, so it's in the center of the page. I actually want this to be a little bit larger, and I want it to be bold. If I wanted to do those things, now I do have the option of every time I create a slide of this type using this layout, I could put in the title, move it to the center, increase the font, and make it bold. But after a bunch of slides with there, such there's always gonna be that second guessing. Did I make the font size 48 or did I make it 54? Um, what happens if I go through and I forget to move it to the center? Now all of a sudden I'm sitting there doing my presentation and centered, 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 left, centered, centered, centered. It throws off and it kind of messes up the consistency that you're working on. But if I go in and go into my slide master and I choose to content, find the right. Oh, here it is. It's the one right here. Okay. Used by slide 3. And you can see when I put my mouse over it, it might be a little hard to see on the screen, but there's a little tooltip on it that says that this is the title and content layout, and it's used by slide 3. So it actually tells you which of your slides in your presentation are using that layout. It also helped that when I came to the slide master view, I was in a slide of this type. If I had been in the title one, it may have started me up here. You can see this is used by slides 1 to 2. So it does give you that little bit of information that you know what you're affecting. This one down here is telling me it's not used by any slides. Come over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the title here, and I'm going Go to my home tab. I'm going to center it. I'm going to make it larger, 54 font, and I'm going to make it bold. And now, every time that I create a title and content layout slide, that title is always going to show up in that same place. I don't have to remember to edit it or change it. Right now, I should note that this is just for this presentation here. Um, if I wanted to, if I go through and design a lot of these here, and I want to use them for future presentations, what I would probably do is I would then either go in and save them as a. Let me get out of Slide Master View and go to design. I would either save them as a theme. I can go in and I can do save current theme, and it will save it as a theme here, or I would save it as a template. And a template basically allows me to create new files based on like a earlier file that I designed. So that is that's one of the ways that slide masters can be really helpful to you as you're building and using PowerPoint, especially if you know that you want things to be consistent and to look the same from slide to slide without always having to do those little fiddly kind of adjustments. And that's why you want to do this here before you start creating the individual slides. Some of the other things that you can do right here in the slide master is you can, if I come up here to the master layout, so this here I can do things like, okay, what's the master title style? And this would be the title on every single page. It would use this one style here, and then kind of the different like bullet text here. You can set these to like different colors and different fonts. But I can also do things like I can choose a theme here. So we were looking at the design themes last week. And what you can do now is you can take one of those themes. If there was something there that you liked, so choose something like this here, I can go through it and I can see all the different layouts of slides and how this theme looks in them. But then I can edit and modify this theme right in here. So for example, if I like say this design, but I don't really like this kind of plum purple color, I can come over here and I can choose like a different set of colors to use for this year, or I can come down and actually customize the colors themselves, and I can use whatever colors I specifically want to do. I can change the fonts that are being used. So if everything's been using Calibri, but I decide I want everything to use, I'm a huge fan of Times New Roman. I'm old fashioned enough that let me see if I can find Times New. Are you? Um, Finding it very easily. Arial Times New Roman. Oh, here we go. A little closer. Okay, well there we go. That's close enough. So I wanted to use this font style here. So now all the fonts. So now when I go and create slides, they're going to use that font, and you can see it's already using that theme that I selected. Actually, I forgot I didn't change the colors. Let's change the colors so we can see how that affects it. Let's go with 2. Um, and there we go. So now you can see it's also modified the colors on every single slide. And so now I'm able to kind of make and create the slides in a way by first of all, I'm starting off with what PowerPoint is already made for me there. So I don't have to start from scratch. Sometimes some of this stuff is really difficult. It's just creatively like trying to, but use creatively starting from scratch can be really tough. But if you're building off something that's already there and you understand kind of what those different parts are, you can visualize it better when there's pieces already in place. So that's what this allows you to do. So there's things like effects. And so what these are is these are like shading or shadow kind of things that kind of happen in kind of the different elements. So you can kind of see in the background, there's like a little transition that happens going on there as I change through these different things. Something like this here adds like a little more texture. If I click on this here and such, you can kind of see there's like a little bit of like depth texture kind of added into the buttons up there. Let me zoom in a bit and we can see that a little closer. Whoop. Yeah, there we go. You can see that there's just some lines or something in there that just kind of give it a little bit more depth kind of impression in there. But by doing these here, you're affecting every slide that you're making in PowerPoint right there from the start. And so you can kind of get your design in, and then you can go in and start building your slides as you need them. So when you choose like things like the colors, these pre-selected colors here, it's basically a set of like complementary colors that don't really clash with each other. There's things that kind of all work together, but again, you can always come down and customize and kind of do your own on there. So every theme you use in your presentation has a slide master and a related set of handout or set of layouts. So if you decide to use more than one theme in your presentation, I don't really recommend it because again, consistency is really important. But if you want to use more than one theme, then you'll have more than one theme listed on it. So this theme up here is our current one, and then there would be like another. It would be like another tree down here of the second theme. Actually, let me just demonstrate how that looks. If I go to, let's create a new slide. This one here, I'm going to change this one, design this one, that. Nope, it's on all of this one here. Add section. There we go. This one, there. This one actually. Okay, so now I'm going to add a section. And by adding a section, basically what I'm saying is that this is a different part of my presentation than the other part, which what it does is it allows me to choose a different theme for that there. So now if I go into Slide Master, you can see now I have my Slide Master and all my layouts here using theme that I was working on before. And now we have the Slide Master here and all the different layouts for the second theme that I chose. And if I go and create another section with another set of themes or another theme in there, and such, I'd have a third one over here as well too that I'd be able to design and edit and change as I went through. Again, I recommend just for consistency's sake, choose one theme unless you have a really good reason that one part of your presentation should look and behave differently than another part of your presentation. Again, it all depends on what you're doing. PowerPoint is a bastion of creativity, and there's just a lot of different things you can do in PowerPoint. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming because there's just so much you can do, and sometimes if you're trying to tie that in with just present while you're presenting, it can get a little overwhelming unless you're designing the PowerPoint presentation to run on its own. There's different ways you can make the PowerPoint kind of its own kind of like I suppose it's going to be on a kiosk and just kind of circling it as like a carousel or something. Um, or as a slideshow like on a computer screen or something that you're not speaking or interacting with. There's that possibility too, but I'm kind of getting a little bit out of scope right now. So the other thing I wanted to show that you can do here in the slide layout is if we look up here at the edit master, is I can either, if I do insert slide master here, I can then actually start designing my own theme. So I can then choose things like the fonts and the colors and putting these like little pieces and do all those things there. I can also create my own layouts. So if remember the layouts were the ones that have like these different pieces here. So this layout here has a title and a subtitle. This one here has a title and a content block. This one here is a title and text, I think. I can't remember, what do they call it? Section header layout. So if you do this at the section, if you have your your presentation broken up into sections, you can use this as kind of like the title screen for that section on there. We have a dual content block here, so we have a title and two content blocks. But suppose there was something that you wanted to do that was your own. So we have a lot of ones that have. We have a couple here that have a title and a couple content blocks. But let's do something that just has two content blocks sitting next to each other. We don't actually have a layout for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here where it says Insert Layout. And what it's going to do is it's going to create. It came down here and it just kind of gave me a custom layout, a blank kind of thing here. There's a few things that will always show up. So we have like the theme elements up here, which is these bars going across the top, and then on the bottom there's a place for the footer. The footer, like the footer in Microsoft Word, is something that can show up on every single page. Generally we don't see it because we don't put anything in there. So, but this is something that you can do. That suppose you wanted to put in the name of your organization. I do that there, and you can put in the date and the page number over here. or the slide number, so that people looking at the presentation, your name's always down there, the date of the presentation's there, and like the slide number. So if they have them like as a handout or as sheets and they fall out and kind of get all mixed up, they can put them back in the right order. Then we have, you can see we have a box here. I'm going to actually get rid of this box. So I just have this nice blank white space here. And now I'm kind of back in the mode that I was when I was designing the slides in the basic class. But what I'm now is, instead of designing what the slide is looking like, I'm designing what the potential of this slide look like. So what I can do is I'm going to come up here, and you can see up on our ribbon, we're in the Slide Master tab up here. There is a button here that says Insert Placeholder. And this is another one of the ribbon's two-part buttons. So I can either click on the top and get whatever default, which is, if I put my mouse over it, you can see it's content. So it's either the default, or I think it's the last placeholder that you selected. If I click the bottom part, I can get all the different types of placeholders I can put in. So there's things like content, text, pictures, charts, tables. I'm just going to do content. And what I'm going to do now is I can actually then draw a box going across. And you notice that as I draw this box, here's a good point right here. You can see I get the guidelines. Remember when we were doing the basic PowerPoint last week, or if you've worked in PowerPoint before, and you know when you put in, say, like a text box or like an image, and you start moving around, you get little guidelines that help you kind of line up things. And so what this is doing is they work here as well too. So what this is now telling me is, this is telling me that my right edge of my box here is right on the right, or is on the central line of the whole slide. And you can see as I move a little bit closer to the edge of the footer here, you can see it kind of snaps to it, which is kind of a nice function that's on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here, and then I'm just going to kind of move it to the left a bit. And so I'm going to make a box this big. So there we go. So now I have a content type in here, and I can go in and I can change how the font looks. We can make it like the Algerian font. We can make that one Algerian font. We can make this one here a different font. Um, this one a different font. And then whenever I put in like a bulleted list that uses these different levels in the bulleted list, they'll use these fonts. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here, and we're going to insert in another placeholder. I'm going to insert in a second um, content one. And you can see now I can use these guidelines to kind of make this. So if I come down, you can see now I get a guideline down on the bottom. It tells me the same height. And so what I'm going to do is I'm this over until I get the guideline here in the middle that tells me, okay, so these are now the same height, or at least the bottoms line up, and they're the same width, which is nice. And let's see if I can, there we go. And if I just increase the top there, I can make that snap in. So now these two boxes are the exact same size. Now what I'm going to do is I'm centered to be here. That's the center line. There we go. So if I move that there, it's not exact, but when I move that there, the guidelines told me that these two edges are now the same distance from the center line there. So they're kind of centered and moved over a little bit. And then over here, I can put in, let's put in some different font styles. Back to home, and scroll down and just choose copper black for this one. Go in and choose, let's get jump down lower my font list. Let's do Playbill for that one. And the third level, let's just do another one. We'll do wide Latin for the, why not? It doesn't really matter much. But now, and what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to come over here, and we are going to rename this layout. We're going to give it a name. Instead of custom layout, we're going to call it class layout. What I have in the layout. Class layout name. And now what this means is that if I leave the master view, and let me actually just delete, oops, slides that I have here. Delete. And I come up here to new slide, and now kind of see right here, it's listed right here. Here's my class layout showing up right in there. I can click that, and now I have my my two content boxes here. And you can see they're using the fonts that I selected right there on the first. So here's my first level. Here's my second level. You can see they're using the fonts that I chose in the slide master. Or not this level, first level. And third level. And so that's what the slide masters allow me to do is not only can I design and unify a look through my entire presentation and plan ahead for how the presentation is going to look there and such, but I can also build and use layouts for the specific purpose that I want for that presentation or for future presentations. If it's something that you know you're going to be using a lot, it becomes very valuable to be able to kind of build your own layouts. So what I'm going to do right now is let's give about 5 minutes. Let's do about 5 minutes on this here. What you're going to want to do is you're going to open up a blank PowerPoint presentation. You're going to come here to the View tab. And in the View tab, you're going to choose Slide Master here. And here, you're going to see all the different layouts that are on here. And what happens is if you put your mouse over them, you're able to see the name of the layout, which slides that it's using. You're going to create a new layout by coming up here and clicking Insert Layout, and then put in two content placeholders by coming here to placeholder and choosing content, and just kind of put them in place. Play around with moving them around. Can you move them around and then change the fonts and things, and then go and create a slide? So we have a question in the chat. Can you create a new layout based on one that already exists? So starting with the one that had a title and two content blocks, and then delete the title and reposition the two content blocks. That's a good question. I believe so, but let's verify. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the one here that has the title and the two content blocks. I'm going to actually right click on this here. The right click menu is very valuable a lot of times because you'll more easily find functions in there than you may find elsewhere. And you can see when I right click here, I actually have an option here that says duplicate layout. So I'm going to click on that, and what it's going to do is now I have two different layouts here that are exactly the same. I'm going to click on the second one. I'm going to rename this. Let's just rename it here as we'll call it two content without title. How about that? And actually, what you asked is actually something I do that a lot. Actually, it's funny. I don't do it in the masters, but I do it when I'm doing the slides. Is I'll choose this layout and then I'll delete the title from it. So this is a good way to kind of avoid having to do that over and over again. And then I can just come up here and I'm selecting the title thing up here. I'm going to click delete, and then I'm just going to click this box that's there and delete, and then I can like resize these to fill up the space. And there we go. That gets us we're able to duplicate, so you can use the elements of what's there. For example, the one thing I haven't had a reason for it, and I haven't really figured it out, but the idea of trying to add in, if it's text, that there. So that's the text styles. But what happens if I want to make that the title? You know what? I don't really have an answer for that right now. To be able to say get that title content thing back. But something I could do is I can come here and I can copy this, and then I can paste it over here, and it'll pull in that element. So I go here and copy the title style. I can then paste it back in. Oh, that didn't do it. That's what I want. There. There we go. So yes, when you're in the slide master, you can treat it like you treat when you're making all of your own slides. All it is that you're actually creating you're playing around with the templates or the molds for your slides, but you still have kind of all the power that you have in PowerPoint as you're working with it. So yeah, so take a few minutes and go do that yourself. And we'll say about 2 minutes. I will then continue on, and we'll start looking at transitions. In which case, we're going to be moving over to the PowerPoint presentation that was here. This exercise one here, the exercise file. So you want to download this and then open that up in PowerPoint for our next step. So take about another 2 minutes, and if there's any more questions, let me know. All right, so I hope you've had some time to play around with the slide masters. I do encourage, again, PowerPoint's a lot of fun to get in and play around with. So the best way is to kind of get in there and just kind of mess around and see what you can do. If you get things like really fouled up beyond any understanding yourself, just close the file and open up a new one. You're not making any permanent changes to PowerPoint by working with those slide masters. They're just for that presentation. So there really is no harm in getting in and just kind of playing around with it there. If you have presentations that you've made before, go open them up and maybe save a copy of them. So you go to File, Save As, like we go here, File, Save As, and I tend to go to Browse, and then just give it a new name here, and then you can play around with that there. Go into the slide master for ones that you've made before and make adjustments and changes, and see how they affect what you did before, what you've worked on before. Um, it's really the best way to kind of learn is just by sitting down and using it here. So the next thing that we're going to be looking at here in intermediate PowerPoint is we're going to be looking at transitions. So transitions are the visual effect that occurs when you move from one slide to the next during a presentation. So I'm going to start my presentation right here. Okay, good. This is working. And so when I go from one slide to the next, when I click to my next slide, you can see my first slide just vanishes. The new slide pops up. It just replaced. There's no. It's what's known as a cut transition. Is that the old one cuts off and the new one shows up immediately there. Transitions and the terminology is something that's used a lot in film editing. It's the same terminology. Um, but you can make that transition, the changing from one slide to the next, more interesting, more dynamic, more unusual, more interesting. I think I said interesting already. Um, and so what happens is you can do things like you can change the speed. You can add some sound. You can customize the look of the transition effects. So we do this here. I'm going to start right here at my first slide. Actually, we're going to go to the second slide because usually what you do is you start in your destination slide. So you have where the transition starts, and then you go to where the transition ends. And it's usually helpful to start at the end of the transition. So you're kind of building the transition in front of the slide that you're looking at here. And we access it by going to the transitions tab right up here on the home on the ribbon. Makes sense. We're working with transitions, so we're looking at the transitions tab. Now you can see the transitions tab is taken up largely by this basically selection box of the different transitions that are available here in PowerPoint. And then over here on the right, we have our timing there, and we'll be looking at that in a little bit, how these here affect what we're doing there. But what we could do is if I click on this down here, so that you can see there is a wide range of different transition effects in place. So there's none. And so this is our cut from one slide to another. There's no transition. It's just one slide becomes the other one. There's things like morph. And what morph does is that morph, it says, actually, there's little tooltips, moves things on the previous slide to the new location on the current slide. And so what this does is this is very useful if you have, say, two slides, they're going to have the same information, but you're rearranging how it looks from one slide to another. And so they say here to get the best results is to copy the slide, to duplicate the slide, and then move things around, and then you apply the morph transition. Anything you add or delete will fade in or out. So then things will show up or fade. There's like some, and get out of that there. There's fade, and so a fade is a very classic transition. And what it does is the old slide fades out while the new slide fades in its place. What does that look like? So if I put that on there, it kind of gives us a little demo there, but let's see how it looks in the presentation. So actually, what I need to go back. Okay, here we go. So now when I click forward, you can kind of see that the title faded out and this one here faded in. A much more graceful change from one slide to another, instead of just being that abrupt change. There's things like push, and what the push will do is that the new slide will push the old slide out. Wipe is the same way, is that it'll actually kind of, it's like a windshield wiper going across the screen, or like a paint roller going across the screen and laying down the new slide over the old slide. Split is like opening up curtains and seeing what's behind. Um, a cut is the previous slide disappears almost instantly and the new slide pops up. The cut is going to be very similar to none in a lot of ways. Random bars is fun. Is that it will kind of just do cut, and I think that will change every time you do it. So the bars will be different places and different sizes every time that you play it there. Um, we have, and you can see actually, the one thing that's kind of cool there is you can see actually that the transition is playing whether I go forward or back. So it's always playing between these two slides. It doesn't matter which direction I go though. So if I'm going from my title slide to my second slide here, it's playing it. But if I want to go back a slide, it will also play it there. So that is something to keep in mind when you're doing a presentation, that if you are planning to go back a slide, if you did have kind of like an elaborate transition in place or something, it will play it again. Um, so yeah, so there's a bunch of like fun little different kind of layouts here. And so what we're gonna do is so yeah, so let me actually kind of show some of the other things. So let's we have our fade. Let's start with a fade because a fade is a slide. Fade here. A fade is a nice, simple transition to kind of play around with. There's some other things that we're able to do with this fade option here. And so if you look over on the right, next to the selection list over here, there's a button that says Effect Options. And every effect is going to have its own different options. So when we look at fade, you can see actually I have two options available here. I have smoothly, and then I have through black. And it's just a kind of terminology thing. What smoothly means is that it's gonna fade from one slide right into the other slide. So the first slide will fade away, and the new slide will fade into full brightness. What fade through black means is that the first slide will fade to a black screen, and then from the black screen it will then fade up to the new screen. So if I do this here, you can see we got that. And let me preview that again. You can see it goes to black and then it comes back up. If I do something, say like random bars, you can see I have the option of making it either vertical or horizontal. So we have horizontal bars. For this transition, vertical works better because it's going to the slide with the vertical bar graph on there. Push, there's that push there. Options that I have is which direction the push should happen. Does it happen from the bottom like we saw, or does it go from the left? Does it go from the right? Or does it come from the top? And so you can kind of choose those things based on kind of how you want your presentation to work. And then the final thing that we can do there's a couple other things we can do over here, such as we have sound. So you can tie in a sound to the transition. And so what this is, this sound will play when that transition happens. You have the duration of the transition. So, and this is in seconds, I believe. So like right now, this transition, the wipe or the push that I'm doing, or if I do the wipe, see there's that wipe where one kind of wipes over the other one. And you can see I can do wipes in actually like 8 different directions here. So this did a wipe this direction here. I can make it last longer if I want to. So I can make this last 5 seconds. And if I do that now, it's a much slower wipe that happens. Generally, you don't want to make these transitions too long. I mean, you saw even with the 5 second there, if I push here at say 5 seconds, um, and let's preview that there, you can see it's very slow, and it might be useful for a good like reveal effect. But it also depends on how you're presenting and what you're doing there. So play around with these here to your discretion when you're choosing kind of timing. Choose something like going with 2 seconds is nice, or like even like 1.5, because what it does is sometimes the speeds that it gives by default are just a little too fast to really understand what that transition is doing. So make it a little bit slower, kind of allows you to kind of ease through the transition, kind of appreciate kind of the artistry of what it's doing in a way. And then finally, the other thing over here is the advanced slide. And what this does is this here basically gives you options on how do you go to the next slide. Do you do it on a mouse click, which is kind of the default setting? So it gives you the most control that you click the mouse or you click the next button on a wireless remote or you hit the arrow key on your keyboard, whatever action. There has to be an action to go from one slide to another. But you can also put in automated timings. And this is in minutes, seconds, and fractions of seconds. So you could say that, okay, this slide is going to be up here for 2 minutes, and then it's going to go to the next slide. Something like using the after here is really useful for when you're building something that's going to run automated, that there's not going to be somebody there speaking that's going to want to have control over how each slide goes. And so again, if you're going to have, say, like a computer screen in a lobby or in a room or whatever, and you want to have like a slideshow going through, a good fun example of something like that is a birthday party, and you want to have pictures of the person who's having the birthday party. Um, you could build a slideshow in things like iMovie or any of like the video editors, but you can also do it right here in PowerPoint. And as we've seen, PowerPoint is a lot of fun, and there's a certain ease of use in using PowerPoint that you can just insert the pictures and you can do like all the design around them there and such. And so what you can do is you can design, have pictures on all the different slides, you can arrange them, have collages, and then you could have it transition, say like every 90 seconds, every 2 minutes, it goes to the next slide. And then get that playing, and then nobody has to touch it. It just goes through, and you can even set it up so at the end it loops back to the beginning and goes through again too. So you can use PowerPoint for that whole process as well too. And so that's what that after over there means, is that it will trigger the transition to the next slide after a certain time, instead of you having the specific action of clicking on it. So, what we're going to do in our exercise here, if go look quickly here, and what I'm going to, yeah, here we go. We are here at number 10. We're adding transitions between the slides, the practice slideshow. We're going to put a fade transition between 1 and 2. We're going to put a wipe transition between 2 and 3. We're going to use the origami transition between 3 and 4, and we're going to use a wind transition between 4 and 5. And then I have here between, because I think I had meant originally that we were going to be using this PowerPoint presentation to play around with the slide masters. So you can create a new slide and create a transition there if you want. And then play around with the different effects options on them. And then between, when we do the wind transition, we're also going to play the wind sound effect. So we'll see how that looks. So let me walk through each of those there, and then I'll give you some time to go in and do this on your own. So the first thing we're going to do is my instructions say to do a fade transition between 1 and 2. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going into transition 2. You can also see, let me just actually point over here on the left side of the screen in our kind of slide contents here. Right underneath the numbers is a little star symbol. And what that's telling me is that there are animations on that slide, whether it be animations inside the slide, or a transition. And actually, I'm just going to go here and try to remember how to remove. Where is it? None. Let's go to none. That's easy to transition that slide there. Okay, so that's off. So you can see the little star up here disappeared. So here we're going to do a fade between 1 and 2, and I'm actually going to just increase this to a 1-second fade. Because I think that just looks a little better. Yep. So we're going to do a fade there. We're going to do a wipe between 1 and 2. So I'm going to slide 2, and I'm going to choose the wipe. And we're going to make this wipe from the bottom. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Actually, would that be better from the top? Oh yeah, that works better. Okay, so from the top down, I'm going to do that there. Then from 2 to 3, so I'm going to slide 3 to choose this one here. I'd say choose the origami. So the slides, the transitions here are also broken up into a couple different categories. There's the subtle ones, which is the ones we've been kind of looking at so far. There's also exciting ones, and these are a bit more drastic. A lot more stuff is happening with them. So there's things like, for example, flip, which does like a whole like flipping action on their doors. These are fun. These here like do a lot of like really neat things. Very dynamic, very interesting to watch. A pan. That was actually kind of cool how it did that because you can see actually it just slid the contents up but kept the background kind of the same. Conveyor doing that same kind of thing. So it's just moving the contents of the slide instead of changing the whole slide itself. Um, Orbit there. What we're going to do though is we're going to choose the I saw it here. Origami. Origami is fun because what it does is it kind of folds it up and kind of makes it into an animated bird that flies away. Um, and then for the last transition I'm going to do here, I'm going to do the one called wind. It's another subtle one. And what it does is it's kind of like a sheet being blown away. And by doing that there, I'm also going to add in sound effect. And you can see there's a whole bunch of different sounds. You can add in you can actually, if I do other sound, you can upload your own sound effects. You can have it be when the transition plays, you can have it say, you could say something, record your voice saying something. You can put that in there as well too. But we're going to come in and we're just going to choose the wind. Okay, we should be able to, if I play this now and you can hear it, there you go. Let me play that again so you can hear it. So when it blows off, we're able to hear that kind of sound there. So take about 3 minutes and go into your own practice PowerPoint there and such and add in the transitions between the different slides. Go in, play around with the different effect options that happen. Like for the wind, I can either go left or right. For the origami, again, left or right. Sometimes they're very basic. They're very simple, the options. Play around with the different options, play around with the durations if you want a bit. But then also for that wind one between 3 and 4, have it play the wind sound. And let me know if you have any questions or you want me to kind of try something different than what I've already demonstrated. All right, so that has been transition. So again, another really fun part of PowerPoint. You can see I don't get to spend a lot of time in PowerPoint, so I always have a lot of fun when I do because there's some neat things to do in here. I always spend most of my time in Excel lately, it seems, which really isn't as much fun. Next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at animations. Now, whereas transitions were kind of like an animated way to get from one slide to another, animations are like actually having the different elements on the slide, the different pieces that you've put on the slide, you can have them all be animated. And With animations, it doesn't, as long as it's not part of the background. So like if we look at this slide here, there's this blue and this the black and the white and the gray kind of stripes and the triangles down here and such. Those I can't affect with transitions, but anything that I've inserted and put onto the slide, I can do some sort of animation with. So animations can do things. They can make an object appear, disappear, move, change size, or change color. You can do a whole lot of different things. By default, when you design, when you build your PowerPoint presentation, and you put the different objects on there, such everything shows up just right when the slide loads up. Everything shows there. But there are times when you want to be able to kind of have a little bit more control over the timing of things showing up or how they show up on your presentation. So we go to animations by going to the animations tab on the ribbon. PowerPoint makes this very easy. Transitions is in the transitions tab. Animations is in the animations tab. Um, and you can see, just like when we were looking. Okay, so I need to actually select something. I'm going to come back over here to my slide slide 2 with the graphs on with the chart on here. I'm going to select the chart because I need to have something selected for to be able to have the animation. You can see when I don't have anything selected, it's all grayed out up here because it has nothing to act on. And so I have to tell it what I want the animation to act on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. Yeah, we'll just click on this. And now you can see they all lit up here. So now I can actually then open this up like I opened up the transitions selections. And there are 4 different types of animations that are built into PowerPoint. There's entrance animations. And so what entrance animations are is they define how the object shows up on the screen. Then you have emphasis. Emphasis is something that makes the object kind of highlight or I keep using the word pop, but it makes it highlight. It makes it so that you can really point out like a bullet point or an object on there that you want people you kind of make sure that it's something that people want to see or that you want them to see in your slide. Exit animations are used to make an object disappear from your slide, and then motion paths allow you to actually move an object on the slide. So you can have the object show up in the middle and then maybe move off to a corner or a slide as you need. And you could actually combine a lot of these together. I was doing a presentation last week that I ended up putting together a slide that had some really complex animations on it. And what I ended up doing was I ended up having something come up as I was talking about it. And then when I was done with it, I had it shrink. So I used there is a grow shrink animation here. So I had it shrink and then move off to a corner. So then what happens is then, and then the center of my slide was open for the next thing for me to have appear on there. And then by the time it was all done, I had like all the 4 corners kind of things shrunk and kind of moved down to the 4 corners. So you were able to see everything as a whole. It was a lot of fun. It made a very complicated slide because there was like all these lines, and I had to do an interesting trick of actually creating a new slide just to kind of design the layout of things that I could then copy and paste over. But a little bit more complicated. But yeah, get in and play around with the animations, and remember you can combine animations to work together. And I'll demonstrate actually how that combination works. It's not part of our exercises, but since I had to do it recently and it was fun, I'll show you how that works as well too. So, how do we choose an animation? We choose it just like we did with the transitions. Is I have my object selected back here, and I've chosen my graph. And what I'm going to do is let's say for example, if I choose the appear. And so what this does now actually is if we go and preview this slide, when this slide comes up, it just has the title. The graph isn't. So what happens is this gives me an opportunity. The title, the title of whatever the slide is, and it's like, okay, now you're about to see this, and this is what the information is. I click, and then it plays the animation. So what happens is when you choose an animation, it puts it into the click order. By default in PowerPoint, the click order, if you just make a PowerPoint presentation and you make a whole bunch of slides and you just put objects in them, you don't do any transitions or you don't do any animations, the click order is one slide to the next. Now, when you add in an animation, the click order, it inserts the animations into the click order. So in this case, the click order would be, if I go back to say my title slide here, my click order, my first click takes me to the next slide. Now, normally, by default, the second click would take me to the third slide, but instead I put an animation in there. So now that the second click plays the animation, and now my third click goes to the next slide. So that's what the by default, when you add in the animation, it puts it into that click order. And if you add in additional animation, so I could have an animation where this shows up and then have an animation like an emphasis one, so like a pulse. And so now what happens is now there's two click actions on this slide. So if I go back here and I start my presentation again, first click takes me to the next slide. Oh, actually, hold on. That replaced the animation. Hold on. I made a mistake. We're gonna oh, there we go. Okay. And I'm going to talk about this animation pane in a second. But let's go back and just kind of show what I mean by this click order. So now, first click takes me to the next slide. Second click plays the appear animation. Third click plays the pulse animation. Next click takes me to the next slide. So that's what the animations you can, as you can see, I can put in more than one animation. I actually had to go into a separate screen for that there, but I'm going to talk about that in just a second there. Just make sure I am covering everything in my notes. Okay, there we go. Okay. So one of the things that we can do with the animations here, so let me go over the animation bar here. So over here we have our selection, just like we did in transition. We have our effect options, just like we did in transition. And again, different animations are going to have different effects available to them. And then over here we have kind of the advanced animation box. And if you're going to get into animation, don't be frightened by this advanced animation thing. This is just happens to be kind of useful tools. And the most useful one in here I find is this animation pane. And when I open that up, what it does is it opens up a little box on the side and it shows all of the animations that I have in place on my slide. But this is where normally what happens is if you just choose an object and you give it an animation and then you choose a second animation, it just replaces that animation. But over here, I can do things like I can, and you can see different objects. If I click on this up here, well, they're all going to show up. But if I don't have anything selected, I can't add any animations. But if I click on this here, you can see when I click on that there, this lights up and this tells me that on this object that I clicked, there are two animations that are set to play on it there. And then I can add an animation. So I can come up here and you can see when I do this drop down, I have all of the different animations. I can then say make it fly out. Let's do that. So now what happens is I have the animation. It will show up, it will pulse, and then it will fly out. So how does this look? If I go here, there's my slide. It shows up, it pulses, and then flies away. So that's what the animation pane does. These here, they are draggable, so I can move this up to here. So now it will show up, it will fly away, and then it will pulse. It doesn't make any sense to do that, but I can do them in that order if I wanted to. And then you also have some various of like timing options over here. So just like with the transitions, is that there is timing options that are available too. You can choose when the animation starts. So by default, it starts on click, which means that when you click, it plays the animation. Now I could do something like, so a couple of different options are with previous or after previous. And so what happens is what they do is that with previous means that, so if I choose this animation here and I choose with previous, you can see now the number, it's no longer 1, 2, 3. It's 1. And so all of this is animation 1. And then there's a second animation. So what this means is that, actually, I'll show you what it means. So what happens, what I set the second animation, the pulse animation, to play with the appear animation. And what does that mean? Look, so I have my slide. When I click, it appears and it pulses at the same time, and then it flies away. Or what I can have it do is I can have it play after the previous. And what that does is it allows the first animation to play, and then we'll play the second animation automatically. So what does that look like? Click here. Let me get that going again. Okay, so when I click, it appears and then pulses. And the appear is so fast. Let's make the appear go say 0.5 seconds, just because it happens so fast. There we go. Click. There's the appear, and then there's the pulse. And so they're not really the greatest of animations to place together. But that's kind of what you're able to kind of play them together. And so when I was talking about having something shrink and move, I was using a combination of this grow and shrink animation and then the move motion paths, and I was having them play at the same time. So as it was moving, it was shrinking. It was kind of, it was a fun little animation to play. So we're gonna change this to on click, and I'm actually just going to get rid of these other animations because we just want to focus on actually this pulse animation for a bit. So when I preview this again, you can see I get that little pulse, and what it does is it kind of pulses out. But there's some different effects that I can have with this here too. So right now it's set as one object, which means the entire graph pulses together. But because it's a graph, it can actually do some special things. PowerPoint recognizes, hey, this is a graph, this is a chart, and there's different pieces in that chart. So we can do things like, say, by series. And so what it does is now it's pulsing each of the different lines as it plays. Let me do that again. You can see it does the whole thing, and then it does each of the different colors. We could do it by category. So now there's that category, and it plays through. You could do by the elements in the series, and now it'll just kind of talk about the blue at the time, talk about the red, there's the orange. So you can kind of see how this helps and indicates as you're presenting and talking about this data, you can have the animation kind of emphasize what you're talking about on there. And if you notice over here, explain contents, when I chose the element in series, you can see actually is it added a whole bunch of like sub animations. Now, the neat thing about that is that all of these right now are set to play on click, but we can also do start after previous. Um, actually, they automatically start. So, but there's a way. So now if I go in and let's see what this looks like here, and then there's that click, and you can see I can click, and as I click, so I'm now talking about the red bar in category 2. I'm now talking about the red bar in category 3. Now the red bar in category 4. Now we're going to talk about the orange bars. 1, 2, and you can see I'm able to emphasize. I'm doing this on click, so I'm able to pull up and emphasize it as I'm speaking to it. So you can see the ways that animation can help like kind of emphasize the way that you're talking. The presentation is aiding you in what you're saying and what you're presenting to them, without you being kind of a guide to uh, what it's doing. So that's a great way to think of presentation. The presentation should be a tool to aid what your presentation, what you're presenting. You want them to be focused on you and your words. And so it's the idea. It's funny because we always hear about show, don't tell. But in a lot of times when you're working with PowerPoint presentations, you want to kind of do the opposite. You want to have tell, don't show. You want to have them focused on you as a presenter rather than your presentation. Um, so just remember that before you do things that are too elaborate, too fancy, or having the bad PowerPoint presentations are the ones that just have like huge blocks of text, like everything that you say, and you're just standing there just reading off what's on the slide. With that, they just need to have the PowerPoint presentation to get what you're saying. They don't need you, and what you do is you want to need you. So use the PowerPoint presentation to emphasize what you're saying, not illustrate what you're saying. Kind of what I'm saying. So let's go in and like look at the follow the exercises. I'm going to give a few minutes for this here because we've already seen how to add animation. So I'll give you up to you to kind of go in and try the different animations for yourself. So what we're going to do is on right down here at the bottom, go to slide 2, give the chart a pulse animation just like I did there before. Play around with the effect options, choose the one that you like that I did before. Then we're going to go to slide 4 and we're going to give the image. Slide 4 has a picture on it. Give that a wipe animation. And look at the different effect options for that there. And then go to slide 5, which is just some text and bullets there. And we're going to give a font color animation. And what we're going to do there is, actually, let's do these first couple of ones, and then we'll go and take a look at the font color one a little bit later. So let's take about 3 minutes and go in and play around with the pulse and wipe animations on slides 2 and 4. And let me know if you have any questions. Right, so that has been animations. Again, there's a lot of fun, a lot of different things to kind of play around with. You can make them really complex, but it's a kind of a good thing to do. Actually, we still have a little bit more on animations. So let's go down to slide 5. And I just want to kind of show up some of the kind of fun things you can kind of do here with emphasize and font colors. So if I select this text box, you can see the text box gets highlighted as a single object. It's down there. It's highlighted as a single object. And so I can do a animation on the entire set of text um, if I wanted to. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to choose there. And you can see when I have text chosen, I get some options for animations that I didn't have, say, if I go over here and choose the picture. If I come over here, you can kind of see there's a bunch kind of grayed out under the emphasis. So text gives me a few more kind of interesting animations to play with. So I'm going to come over here and do font color. And so what font color allows me to do is font color allows me to change I've made my text in black. I can change it to another color if I want to. So if I play this here, what it will do is it will start black and it will turn over to blue. And you can see because I chose the entire text box, it's changing every point to uh, the same color. Some different things I can do is I can do it all at once. And so now the whole thing is changing all at once or as one object. So all at once and the one object kind of behaves about the same, but I can also do it by paragraph. So we'll change this to blue and then we'll change this one to blue and then we'll do this one to blue. Now, text also allows us to be even more specific on how the animations play. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up here and we're going to actually do none. So we're going to just get rid of the animation that's in play. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight some text inside the text box. And I'm going to, you can see I do that there. I still get my font animation showing up here. I'm going to choose font color. And let's do this one, blue for, actually what I could do also is let's do this. Let's this select, yeah, okay. So I'm holding down the control key on my keyboard and I'm able to select these different points all the same. And what I can do is I can give them all font color. We'll have those go to red. We'll have the one or the point A's, have those go to uh, then let's have the point B's go to uh, purple. Purple's a nice color. And so now what I've done is I've gone through and instead of having all of the text um, animating at one point, let me go into the slide here so we can actually see. There's our wind and the wind thing blowing away. Now what happens is that again this is an emphasis, so that I don't have an appear animation, but so everything appears on here. But then as I'm talking, I can be talking about point A, and I click, and now you can see my top points all change to red. I click a second time, and now my point A's all change to blue. I click again, and all my point B's change to the purple there. And so I could have done it. I could have done point one and then point one A, point one B, and have those. And as I click, it could. And as I'm talking, I would advance, and it would click, and it would then highlight the point that I was talking to at each point. And then I get to point two. This one would light up, and I can choose the order and which points get colored at that time. I can change the order of this if I wanted to. So if we do, it'd be kind of strange to do this here, but if I change the order of that there, and now we have our wind and that plays. So now we're talking about point one, and now we're talking about the point B's. Now the point B's are going to light up or change animate, and then the point A's are going to animate. So basically what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that there's a lot of granularity. There's a lot of like fine control that you have over the animations. You can either have the animations work on like an entire object like this here is, or in the case of text specifically on parts of an object. And you just have to select the text. Can you change any of the, we have a question in the chat. Can you change any of the text back to black after you've moved on to another point? Yeah, it would just be a matter of adding in a animation. So if I go here to point, we've talked about point one. What I can, or let's do the three here since those all changed at one point there. I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to do add animation because I want to add it in between, or down here at the end, because there's already an animation on these. So if I go and try to choose font color, it's going to play that same animation. But if I do add animation, and let's do another font color, it allows me to do the font color again. And if I go in and I choose black for this one, and so now this here, so if I take this and I move this back up to point or to my second animation, so now my first animation will be the black to red animation, and then when I'm done talking about that, there I click again. We go to, in fact, actually, what I'm going to do something interesting. I'm going to take animation 3 here, and instead of having this start and click, I'm going to have it after or with previous. So what I'm going to have this do, this is a little bit kind of answers your question, but makes it a little fancier. So now I'll show you what I just did. So we have our wind in. I should turn that off because it's obnoxious. So now I'm talking about my point 1, 2, and 3. Those get highlighted. Those get turned to red. And then my next click that I'm going to do, I'm going to click, and my next thing, these here turn to blue, and now you can see these ones here change to black. So yes, you just have to add in the animation. You can kind of make it like whatever emphasis. You could do an animation that makes the there's a text animation um, that is bold flash or bold reveal. So there's different. You can actually do. And I think so. You have the colors, but you also have you can make it like bolder, like bold reveal. So text changes to a bold font. So you can make them bolder while you're talking about them, and then when you're done on your click, as you go to the next point, you can have them go back to the normal text, and then have your next point become bold. So you can actually kind of like, and it's kind of similar to that pulse, but it'll be like a text kind of thing, so that you can kind of emphasize, and that's why this is under the emphasis tools here. You can emphasize the text that's on while you're speaking about it, and then have it go back to normal, so it's not as important as the next thing that you're talking about. So that was a great question, and it's just a matter of just adding in animations. From my experiences, I have not found a limit to the number of animations that you can have. Um, you'll notice right now these all have a yellow bar on them, and that's because they're in this emphasis category here. If I go in and add an animation for the whole thing that we do, say fade, you can kind of see it has like a little orange box down here at the end. So what happens is that the yellow box here gives a sense of how long the animation is, whereas this year's a very short animation. And so if I did like the entrance animation, it would be green on there. So that's just what these colors over here mean. But yeah, you could put in the animations. It's all a matter of how much time you want to spend and how complex you want to make it. So yeah, you can definitely you can do all those individual things, and it's just a matter of sitting down and playing around and getting the timing and the clicking right. And doing that. So that is animations. Please let me know if you have any questions. I can demonstrate some more on there. But for the final part of this class, we're going to go in and we're going to take a look at the presenter view. So we've talked about how to put together your animation, how to put together your slideshow, how to make your slideshow have text and pictures. We've looked at how to kind of make things dynamic and interesting with transitions, animations. We looked at the design, like ways you can play around and tweak the design, whether using built-in themes with PowerPoint or by adjusting them for your own purposes using like the slide masters, adjusting and building your own for your own purposes using masters. Last week we also did a look, or in the basic class we also did a look at what it looks like when you present on the screen when you play. When I hit the play presentation, this is what I see on the screen, and the different tools that I have available during the presentation. So we're going to look at there's a more I hesitate to say more advanced a tool, because it really isn't that more advanced. It's a more useful tool, it helps you be more efficient as a presenter tool in the presenter view. And one of the things we're going to do to kind of make the presenter view kind of really have its benefits is we're going to go in and we're going to put some notes into some of these slides. Let's make sure I have my notes, make sure I'm covering. Yeah, okay. So the presenter view is a way to view your presentation with speaker notes on one computer, but only the slides appear on the screen that the audience sees. So whether or not your computer is plugged into a projector and being projected up onto a big screen, or it's being connected, say, to like a television screen, and people and your audience is sitting there watching on the television screen, um, or even in this case, actually, what happens is that if I have presenter view turned on, and because I have multiple monitors, I can change what you see on the video screen here based on that. So there might be, when I get turn this on, I might have to do some adjustments to kind of make sure you see what I want you to see. But what the presenter view does is it allows you to see tools and notes and everything that make it really valuable to you as a speaker while you're using PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to slide 1, and we're just going to put some notes here. So we're going to say, hello, these are the notes for slide 1, talking about graphs here. see how this graph pulses to. And that's just a reminder as me as a speaker that I have to do an action to make that do there. Let's go to 2, and we're going to do this is slide 3, and it bring table of action on it. Should and this here we'll just use man with his son boys. Okay, so we've put in some notes. The reason why that they're I want to show how the notes show up in the presenter view. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my slideshow tab up on the top, and I'm actually going to make sure I have right here turned on. I'm going to have use presenter view. I turned it off before because to make sure that you were seeing in the video what I wanted you to see. I'm going to turn this on. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to start the slide from the beginning, and I can show you what presenter view looks like. So I do need to swap screens. Okay, so you should be seeing now the presenter view as opposed to just the presentation screen. So to show you, this is what I do this here. This is what the audience is seeing up on their screen. We're seeing this slide here. This is the same as if we're not using presenter view. This is what we were looking at last week in the basic PowerPoint class. And now I'm going to swap again. This is presenter view. And so some of the parts that we see here is we have the current slide that's on the screen. So you as a presenter are seeing this here, right here. Just as a note right now, I can't see the chat when I'm in this view because the other screen where I'm normally seeing the chat is blocked by the presentation right now. So I'll go through this here and feel free to send your questions, but I won't be able to see them or answer them immediately. So right here, we're seeing what the presentation is looking like, what the audience is seeing. They're seeing this right here. Right up here at the top, you can see there's a nice little timer. So if you know that you have 10 minutes to speak, 15 minutes to speak, this helps you keep track of kind of the timing that you're going there. You can pause the timer if you need to or restart it. So there's a value to the timer to being able to see that there. We have the clock over here, which is again useful if you know that, okay, you're speaking till 8 o'clock and then the next speaker is coming, or you know that you want to leave time. The last 10 minutes you want to leave for questions. So I know like at 3:50 here, I want to be able to be wrapping things up and have room for questions for people. You have a clock, so that's tied to the clock on the computer. Over here, you have a preview of what the next slide looks like. So this is useful to make sure that you know that, okay, the next slide is the one that you expect it is. I mean, how many of us have gone in and done a presentation and we're like, oh, going on to the next slide, and all of a sudden the next slide isn't the one that we thought it was. We had maybe put something new in or we had rearranged things and we just had forgotten about that there. So this allows you to see what that next slide is. You notice it doesn't show the animations or anything. It shows you the final version of the slide, but at least you have an idea of the content or what's being shown at that point. Down here, if you remember back in, let me change this back to here. We had these like little like tools kind of hidden down here, kind of translucent. We had things like the back forward. We had the laser pointer and the pen. Um, get out of that and change this back again. Yep. We have those here again too. So here we have our laser pointer and our pen. So I do the laser pointer. Um, and what I'm seeing actually on the presentation screen right now is I am actually seeing the laser pointer showing where I'm putting it here. So it does actually like match from one to the one. Unfortunately, I can't show you that screen, but that's just the way it is. Maybe one of these days I'll figure out, I'll set it up so that can be viewed a little bit better. The pen, if you wanted to be able to make pen, there we go. Oh, okay. So that was interesting that it wasn't turn pen on again. There we go. And there we go. So now we're talking about this title. This is important. So you can actually, as you're presenting, if you have a mouse in the computer there and such, you can actually then kind of interact with your slides uh, in a way while you're live presenting on there. The highlighter allows you to say, okay, this is the important bits there. See, here's the details as I'm talking about. You have things like over here. If I click See All Slides, remember before I was showing you that there was when you were in presentation view, you can change this here and make it easy to hop to another slide. Now, if you don't have presenter view turned on and you use that there, your audience will see it and they'll see all of your slides. Here, um, only you in presenter view are seeing these seeing these images here. The slide that you're on is still what's up on the visual thing there. I just want to just make sure. What's going on? Oh, discard. I want to make sure. Okay, yeah, you are seeing what I want you to see. I just wanted to make sure that everything was being shown up correctly. Again, I can't see my previews. And then what happens is then you have the choice that you can go to a black screen if you want to, so that nothing else is visible on the screen. You could go to a white screen. So you can even like, okay, white screen, and then you can have, it's almost like a whiteboard that you have available here. Um, and so then you can kind of draw and have things available there. Like if you wanted to have that kind of like audience kind of interaction thing kind of showing up on there, all ink on slide. Um, so you have a couple different options that are available here. And then we have our advancement to our next slides. And you can see there's also a notes section down here. So if I go to my next slide, you can see now it played the transition. And I'm actually going to turn off the pen so I don't accidentally mark anything. And you can see over here, here are the notes that I have in. Hello, these are the notes for slide 1. We are talking about nifty graphs here. See how the graph pulses. Click the pulse. And so I click and it does the little pulse thing. And then I go to the next slide. Oh, and actually what happens is because I have the animation playing, click, it's going to play through all my different pulses. Click, click, click. And I don't have to click down here. I can just click right on the slide if I want to, and I'll go to the next thing. And then this here again shows me the next slide that's loading. Let's go back. There we go. But here's my next slide. So I'm going to go to slide 2. This is slide 3 or slide 2, and it is a boring table of information on it. We should move on. So let's move on. And so I'll fly away, goodbye, boring table of information. And we're at here. And now we have a man talks with his son and his brain lights up. Is he a superhero? I don't know, we'll blow away. And now we have our points. And so how is he a superhero? Well, here are the major points about why he's a superhero here. But let's get into the finer details here. So there's that. And then we'll get into the other finer details there. You can see it's playing those animations that I set up there. And the presentation screen is seeing all this here, but I'm seeing this here. And then it's telling me I'm at the end of my slideshow. So this here will tell me that, hey, we're at the end of the slideshow there. And I click that and we'll just go to the black screen. So that is what presenter view basically allows you to do. It allows you to have tools in your grasp to make it so that you're more aware of the time that's being, because sometimes when you're presenting, it's easy to lose track of time. I'm always constantly, when I'm doing these classes, constantly checking the clock because sometimes it's really easy for me to run on. And I'm just making sure I have enough time to kind of cover everything I want to do. If I'm using that presenter view, I know, okay, so I know I have 15 minutes, so I have that little timer up there setting. And I think you can even there's things like here, for example, there's like rehearsed timings, and you can start it and you can figure out the perfect timing of each slide, and it will actually record. So by doing this here, as you're speaking and practicing through your presentation, it will record how much time you spend on each slide. And so you can decide, okay, I'm spending too much time on slide 3 and I'm running out of time at the end. You'll learn how to pare down on slide 3. So those are kind of the different kind of tools that they have kind of built in to make it easier for you to present. You can see the clock. You can see what the next slide is, so you're prepared with what the slide is going to offer. You can add notes. You can see your notes on there, and as you can see, um, what the audience sees is not what you're seeing in the presenter view. So your notes can be anything that you need to have there. It's like you can write your joke for yourself. It's just like or even like tips. It's like, okay, you might be a little bit nervous at this point, so like focus on the guy sitting or on somebody sitting in the third row. And see if you can kind of make them laugh, and you just have that note in there and such. So it's like, okay, so this is something that you're doing to kind of get over your nerves while you're presenting. A lot of people do these different things while they're presenting. Um, Yeah, so that is kind of an intermediate PowerPoint, kind of playing around with a lot of those things there. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything else you want to demonstrate on here. There's a lot you can do with PowerPoint, but it's a lot of fun to figure it out. And we've actually covered a lot of what PowerPoint can kind of really offer on a lot of things. And the best way to do it is just get in there and kind of play around with it. Make some funny presentations for silly different topics, or if you're doing it for work, get in there and you know what, challenge yourself that if you're doing presentations for work, add in something new every single time. So then, I mean, gradually work into it. Maybe your next presentation, you're going to just put in transitions and get used to how the transition works. Find the transitions that you like. People have preferences for different kind of slide transitions. I mentioned this in my video editing class. If you ever go back and watch the Star Wars prequel films, so the three that George Lucas made in the early 2000s, George Lucas he was in charge of the editing, and he very much liked the white transition, or actually a push transition. He really likes push transitions. And nearly every scene transition that happens in those Star Wars films is a push transition. It's a push left to right. It's actually from left. So it's that every single time that you go from one scene to another scene, it's that same transition. And so he was just that's what he did. And so what you do is you choose. Okay, so we have a question in the chat. These are always good. I have PowerPoint 365 and I don't see the zoom function in presentation or presenter view where you have it. I also don't see how to see all of the slides at the same time. And I really wish, because when I've done this class before, I've been doing it on 365. So let's go back into presenter view here and take a look. Let me change this back to here. Um, so you're not seeing like this toolbar down there. It might be in this menu that opens up. There might be options in there. Other things you can do is you can right click, um, and you can see if I right click, there's some abilities in there. Let me see what happens if I do show. Okay, that just shows my taskbar on Windows. So actually, so the show taskbar, what this does is this allows me to pop this open so I can change to another window if I need to, which is useful. Um, I wish I had 365 available on this computer to be able to see that. Because if I remember correctly, it was available in there. Because I actually have it. Because when I actually originally wrote this class, I was doing it on 365, and I do have those details in the presenter view. I have the see all slides and the zoom functions. Huh. So what I recommend possibly is you can go back. I do there all the other times that I've taught this class are available here on YouTube. So go back to like in the Ferguson Libraries channel and take a look at probably I think it's August. I did intermediate PowerPoint in August actually, and I did that one on a computer with 365. And so that should kind of match your setup closer to what I have here with 2016. That's all I can say right now. If anything, you can contact me here at the library too. My email address is fskornia. Um, if I pull this up here, you can see my name down underneath. Oh wow, my screen is not. The lights are changing. The sun's going down. Um, my email address is fskornia, so my name and my last name here at fergusonlibrary.org. Um, if you can't find it from that video there, send me an email and we can kind of work on it a little bit then too. I'll help you out with that. Because we'll help you kind of figure that out. Because I really wish that it would happen. What just happened to my lighting. That's really so you can see I have a green screen behind me, and the lighting all of a sudden just has changed dramatically. Um, yeah, any other questions? Uh, I do always like to point out that I do have my feedback survey here. So at this link here, projectoutcome.org/responses/56016. This link is also available on the online technology classes page. So you can just click the link from there, and it's just a brief 5-question survey, just kind of how you found the class and kind of the different things that you want to see us teach. We're right now in the process of trying to figure out what we're going to be doing kind of going forward in April. So any suggestions are nice for that there. So with that, thanks for joining me. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll hang out for a few more minutes to see if any questions come up. And I hope you have a lot of fun getting in there and playing around with PowerPoint. As I said, it's the most fun out of the Word program or the Office programs because there's a lot of flexibility and power with it. And just some really fun things to do. Next week, I am doing Microsoft Office Integrated, which is looking at Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and how to use them together. So we'll look at how to take things from Excel and put them in Word and PowerPoint. So like the graphs, change back to here. So things like the graphs and the charts, how to get them into Word and PowerPoint. And then we'll be also looking at mail merge. So how to do a mail merge and do mailings and letters in Word. And then the final week of March, I'll be doing some video editing. So with that, thanks for everybody joining. And again, I'll be around for some questions if you have anything. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you again for joining me. I hope to see you again next week for Office Suite Integrated, and thanks for being part of the Ferguson Library. With that, I bid you a good afternoon and hope you have a good weekend.